Greetings and welcome. We are going to talk about understanding conflict in literature, an overview of literary conflict, its types, and its roles in storytelling. This is an overall picture of understanding conflict in literature, so it is not riddled with detail. I also want to let you know that there is a sister article to this. It's probably a little more detailed than this one. Than the video, but the video does hit on the big points of the article, and the sources at the end are for your convenience, but they cross over into the article and the video. So that's just an introduction to that. So let's get started, shall we? Let's talk a little bit about different types of conflict. They're very important in storytelling, so I want you to think about what does this mean, and think about stories that you've listened to or stories you've read or watched, and how these types of conflicts make the story better. They're necessary for the story. So let's just have a look at some of the information here. I'm going to try to get it to go forward. Let's go next. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why the keyboard's not working. So what is conflict? Let's have a look at that. Conflict is the struggle between opposing forces that drives a story forward. So think about protagonist and antagonist. You've probably heard of those in general, but not always. The protagonist is the person or entity that is seeking the end goal. There's some goal that they're trying to achieve, and the antagonist is the one pushing back against that. Putting obstacles in the way and trying to stop that person or entity from achieving their goals. So that gives you, in case you don't know, which you probably do at this point if you're watching this video, of what those are. Now, those look different in different stories, and I'm not going to talk about in this video, but there will be other videos available if you would like to look at that more, just closer. So conflict creates the tension, it reveals the character, and it shapes the plot. It shapes the story. It reveals what kind of character is this. It creates that, that opposing forces, that tension that you see in the stories, really good stories anyway. Okay, so why conflict matters. First of all, it's important, right? It provides that tension and the stakes. It provides the cost, so if you will, so to the character. So sometimes there's a cost to achieving a goal, even in life. So in our stories, it's no different. It helps develop our characters. If you think about characters who grow, who have a redemption arc, so they redeem themselves in the story, it engages readers emotionally, or people who watch film and TV, it still applies to that as well. I mean, if there is no conflict, it's pretty boring if there's nothing there. So it can't just go along and blah, 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 blah. We soon turn it off, or we go to the commercial, if it's on regular television, and go to the restroom and never come back, right? So it's kind of dry. It drives the plot. It drives our story. So this tension, these knocking of heads, if you think about superhero movies and how the hero might be fighting the villain, right? It's driving that plot forward. So now character, here's some conflict types. These are on the outside, right? So if you think about what happens outside of us. So a character, that would be that, hero and villain, right? The character versus society. Sometimes there can be a character who seems to be trying to get toward a goal and the society can be their block. They can be battling the whole society or parts of society. I won't go into all of these individual examples because those will be in other videos. But the character might be versing nature, so he's out there trying to survive on an island. Right? There's some conflict there. So it doesn't always have to be you versus me, right? It can be you versus society. Something's going on there. You versus nature trying to survive out there. It could be you versus technology, me versus technology. That could be AI. It could be all kinds of stuff. And of course, my beloved favorite reading and favorite videos and, film TV shows fall into the last one, which is character versus fate slash supernatural. So fate can be by itself, or supernatural can be considered fate in this case, but I'm thinking in the realm of fantasy. So I like fantasy and sci-fi. And so, even there you could have crossover. So you could be character against society and something supernatural, or there are all kinds of different ways that stories unfold, which you already know, because even if you don't read avidly, you would still see these things on television and film. So keep that in mind as you move through your stories and think about external forces going against a character or a set of characters. So types of conflict that are internal, think about like yourself with a big decision to make, right? And you're battling with yourself, or battling with good or bad. So think about the angel and the devil on your shoulder, right? You could be thinking about a decision you're going to make, and there could be an internal conflict there, or the right thing to do. Moral dilemmas, emotional struggles, personal growth challenges. All these show up in our stories and can add just wonderful richness to those stories. So they're really super important. And most stories, I can't think of one that doesn't have a little bit of both. There could be some out there, but it just really enriches our stories. So wonderful stuff. So some examples in literature, I'm sure you were like, yes. And some of these you may not recognize. And you might, but some of these you may not recognize. So Hamlet and Shakespeare, the character versus the self, and the character versus the character. So you can see sort of there's this combination of things, I need to make this decision, or I'm having and we'll hear a little more about Hamlet if you're in my class, but there can be different combinations of things. And Shakespeare was very skilled at putting different types of conflict in the stories. So I believe we have some Shakespeare in our class, but we'll see. Anyway, so The Old Man and the Sea, that's by Hemingway. Character versus nature. That's kind of like what I explained to you. You can be out in nature and trying to fight against it, which is kind of hard to do, but you're trying to survive out there. There's all these different conflicts that are going on. I was trying to think of the movie On the Island. I'll probably think of it while I'm speaking, but there is an actor really well known. I just went blank, but he has to survive. Castaway. He has to survive on an island. That is definitely character versus nature. So The Hunger Games, that's a little more recent. That's Collins, and that's definitely character versus society. But it also had character versus character. So I don't want to leave that part out, but the main overarching conflict was character versus society. So they were being placed into this, arena, and they were having to do this because of the way society was set up. You could almost argue that character versus character was a big part of it, because the way the president was and the way you had to fight your way out, and there was only one survivor. But really, it was more about society as a whole. And of course, that's just my opinion. But there are other ones in that one. So how do we identify conflict? I really want you to think about these. You're definitely, so looking for the main source of tension. Where is that tension? Where is that push against? Where's that maybe obstacle, right? To ask, what does the protagonist want? What does the person with the goal actually want? What's the goal here? Identify the opposing force, right? So who or what is happening to stop that protagonist, that hero, so to speak, from achieving the goal, right? Who is that? So you can that will help you identify conflict as well. Determine if it is internal or external. We talked about that back here. The external, right? In this one, the internal. So really look at that and determine if it's internal or external. Conflict in story structure. The conflict typically follows the arc. I'm actually going to show you a visual here. But think about how the introduction, we're introducing characters and all of that stuff. We have rising action that goes up. The conflicts intensify, right? So you feel it in your bones. You feel the intensity. And then the climax, it's where the conflict is at its highest point. It's right up there, about to sort of explode. It's the time you would not go to the restroom to get away from your story unless you hated the story. So, and then the conflict is resolved or transformed. That's in the resolution. And here you can kind of see that. This is the Freytag's pyramid, the story arc. And you can see that how this follows a pattern. Now, I do want to say here, just before we finish this video up, that this is not always this clear. Right? So this is just a tool to help you understand the story arc and where things sort of fall into. And there are also other names for these where you have exposition, rising action. So if you see other words used, it's okay. There's several different ways of saying this. But this is the one I want you to know for the class. And remember that, rising action isn't right there exactly in between exposition and climax. It just doesn't work that way in story. But I did want you to have a visual to go by, and it's worth remembering. Now remember, conflict is at the heart of storytelling. Understanding it helps you interpret, discuss, appreciate. So it's really super important. And just for a second, I'll show you this huge page of sources. Some of them are older, but they're helpful. And this is also crossed over with an article that's linked at the bottom of the video description. Thank you for listening, and feel free to post any comments or questions that you might have. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day.